All right, well guys, my name's Randy Barone, and I apologize if I come across like I'm screaming at you. I'm very used to talking to a larger crowd, but the people that are here, you're going to walk away with information that other people are going to wind up wishing they had. So I know that topic might have threw off some of them about saying CPO program, because a lot of the dealers out here don't have one. So it's more about actually getting inventory. So, and talking about that inventory side. So when I look at everything, just to give you a very, very brief background, my background is coming all the way from salesperson all the way up through general manager, but on the software side, we're the ones that built AAX, Red Bumper, first of its kind used car inventory management tool back before there was a vAuto of the world. So as far as what you do every day when you walk out, scan a car, and look at a vehicle, more than likely you're using some form of that technology. But today we're going to look at how do I get an unfair advantage or a competitive advantage over other dealers? And when you look at what's going on, I think it's very important to be able to take a look at and know really what's going on who your competition is. So when I say know the competition, know right now that dealers, new car stores, which are your competition that's out there, they're focused on you. You may not be focused on them, but they are definitely focused on you. Their money right now, if you look at the screen there about what they're losing every time they're selling a car, I'm talking about net profits, they're losing money. And when you look at it overall, knowing the competition, you got to know where they're fighting to get their cars from. So when you look at the actual graph, that's from NADA's data, where a new car store actually gets their inventory from, because they're standing in the auction lanes buying cars. And they're out there aggressively buying cars. They're trying to buy even more cars because right now they need inventory. And it's going to become more and more competitive. When you look at the vehicles that are out there and what's taking place, it's become a very aggressive situation. The average new car store, as far as what they have their cars for, is $20,586. The Manheim Index is at an all-time record high. It is at $19,968. So when you see that model, cars are bringing more money than they ever have. These guys are having to pay crazy money. But looking at it deeper, what's causing all this? What's causing them to lose money? What's causing them making it harder and harder to find the right cars? And on that screen, when you were looking at where they get their inventory from, only 4% of their inventory comes from buying cars directly from the consumer. I would tell you, I've yet to walk into a new car store that buys 4% of their inventory directly from a new car store. So it's even worse than that. If you look at a CarMax right now, CarMax buys some stores 70 to 80% of their inventory directly from the consumer. Last year they made $416 million in wholesale profit. That's off the cars they buy from consumers that they don't keep, that they turn around winding up selling through their own brick and mortar auctions. So buying cars from the consumer, very sharp process that these guys have down. But when you look at what's causing it, many dealers are following the same buying and pricing models. This is a huge concern. It's a concern for you sitting here in the room. The days of being able to buy a car and price it against the market, those days to be able to buy a car at the auction at an all-time high and then bring that car out into the market and be able to price that car effectively and actually be competitive off what you're doing, that is becoming a very, very tough challenge. Many dealers buying most of their cars from the auctions right now, and I'll show you some data on that. Margins between the vehicle and the auction and the market are extremely thin. And I went ahead and put some examples up here for you in a second. Many dealers are using the same marketing approaches. Auto Trader, Cars.com, Car Gurus, TrueCar. We're doing the same thing with really no competitive advantage to what we're doing other than price. And if you look at some of the biggest used car retailers, they're not out there playing the price game. CarMax doesn't mark their cars down to being the cheapest. They're not pricing their cars below everybody's, but they're systematically sitting back with their processes and sitting there eking away and making great profits off of what they're doing. When you look at where do you get your vehicles from, if you look at that percentage right now, independent dealers, 97% are coming from the auction. So if you're depending upon to go to the auction and buy your cars, guess who's else competing with you right now? Those new car stores. And they're really gearing up because they're realizing we can't make money on new cars, so we need to focus on used cars. So when you look at all of us going there to buy the same cars and sit there and look at market data, what's selling, what's making sense, we're really making some really, really tough decisions off of being able to buy more cars. If you look at it from this standpoint, and this is I like to be realistic in what I do. This is Randy Barone buying a car at the auction. So that's real data, real MMR information. and I bought that car, and it's averaged 19.1. Then I turn around and I look at market data, and that's the latest market data in that market where I'm going to price that car, and if you look at it, it's 19.9. So what kind of margin is in there for me to be able to buy a car, recon the car, price the car, market the car, and then still try and eke out a profit? It's almost physically impossible. So when you look at it, we got to look at other sources of inventory. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about owning your own market. I came from the Houston market, where I thought I was a genius in used car sales. That means my new car store, I grew up in Texan with Mr. Grayson. We averaged 208 used cars. And everybody thought, oh, wow, Randy Barone's incredible. That's until CarMax moved in and started selling out of 4 locations, 500 cars apiece. That's before Texas Direct came in and sold 2,000 cars in a month's time. When I saw 2,000 cars in a month's time, I turned around and said, man, I'm really not that good at all. And all that really did is open up the minds of what can be done. That means there's a whole lot more opportunity. If your store is only selling this much, I promise you, there's a whole huge opportunity that's out there that you're just not taking advantage of. And those opportunities are going to come from what I'm sharing with you here. Have a simple tool that enables you. I don't care what tool you use. I'm just telling you to be able to have a tool, simple tool to be able to buy cars directly from the consumer and be crazy aggressive with it. That means at my location, I advertised, if you got CarMax in your market, I'll beat CarMax's buy bid by $500 on a car over $5,000, and I'll beat them by $250 on a car under $5,000. And I can tell you, every time I had a customer come in, it was a huge win, every time, with that written offer. Whoever's the biggest player in your market to be able to buy cars from, you need to go after them. Advertise the tool in everything you do. If you notice Texas Direct in the Houston market, and I'm just going to tell you why I'm bringing them up, I'm not telling you to become them. Just some of the things they did were amazing. Every taxi cab in the city of Houston, we want to buy your car. Every billboard from Houston to Dallas, we want to buy your car. They came up with all these little cute slogans that were out there. Everybody just knew that if you wanted to sell your car, you bring it to Texas Direct. They did such a good job. They had their own lane at the auction, and Rick would tell me, the owner of it at the time, would sit there and say, Randy, I've got my own lane at the auction now to run the cars that I don't want to keep, and I'm making more money some months in wholesale than we actually make in retail. Why? Because he's buying the cars directly from the consumer and running them through that absolute lane. So when you look at overall what you can do, like I said, I don't care the approach. I don't care what tool you're looking at. But you need to have a very systematic approach that enables a consumer that you're marketing out to. I'm not talking about something just sitting on your website or you got some crazy sign on your lot that says we buy cars. That's not going to cut it today. We have to be very aggressive going out to the consumer through every bit of marketing you're doing to offer to buy those cars directly from the consumer. If you look at those tools, what we look at as a company, I turn around, this is real data that you're looking at. That's just one store. But if you look at that far column there, we ask the customer the question after they describe their car, are you interested in buying a replacement vehicle? And right now, over 97% of those people are saying yes or maybe. So CarMax, by chance, we all think it's by just accident that they lost all that money starting out, but now they're doing unbelievably well. What they realized is if we treat the customer right, we buy the car right, we buy the customer's car, they're not going to drive home in a taxi cab. They're going to stand there if we can treat them right and be able to sell them another vehicle. So it opens up a lot of opportunity off of what we're doing. Regardless, even if they don't want to buy something else, you buying that car without the auction fee, not having to compete with someone else, is far better than sitting there playing the auction game right now. Because a lot of the merchandise that you guys need, you can't get those cars at the auction. So what I like to talk about is sources of inventory. So aggressively having something, I mean being so aggressive that I'm willing to have a mobile unit. Somebody wants to sell their car and they don't want to bring it in. If you look at Carvana's ads right now, what are they willing to do? They're willing to go to your house and pick up your car. If you don't think that they're your competition, they need cars so bad that they're going to be out of business if they don't start buying cars, a massive amount of them from the consumer. When you've got all these companies that have been in my office in the last 3 months, Carvana, CarMax, AutoNation, all these guys in there saying, we're going to go after buying cars from the customer in a giant way, what is that going to do to everybody in the room? If you're forced to only buy cars from the auction, you're not going to be able to survive in this current world. So we have to come up with other ways to be able to get those cars. Pay salespeople for finding cars. Literally, today's pay plan needs to have your salespeople being just as aggressive to sell a car as it is to buy a car. That means just as hard as they're working to sell one, they're working to be able to buy a vehicle. Pay consumers. Down at Texas Direct, again, I'm going to bring up their name. Texas Direct came up with the Boom Squad in the city of Houston. That means they advertise on the radio and everywhere. If you see a car for sale, pull over, take a picture of it, send it to us with the phone number, and if we buy that car, we're going to turn around and pay you. They turned everybody in the city into buying cars for them and run them through. You're not an employee, but you're able to go out and make an extra bunch of money if you just find people wanting to sell their car. That's aggressive and going after it in the right way. Pay Uber and Lyft drivers. Have you seen these guys? They're with customers all day long, literally paying them to market what you're doing. If these people are willing to drive a car to make money, I guarantee you they're willing to be able to talk to them about you being able to sell a customer a car. A lot of the times the people they're taking are going to pick up a car at a repair center, dropping off a car, just got back from the wrecking yard where their car was totaled. You don't know where they're at. I just want all those people out there singing my praises. The other ones are reverse buying off Craigslist and AutoTrader. I can't tell you how many times I buy cars with my son directly, still to this day, right off the paper, right through the Craigslist, right through eBay, all of them, because there's a lot of cars out there. People are getting frustrated to be able to have those cars, and they're not selling them. So then when I get in touch with them as a buyer, they're willing to sell me those cars. Airport valet. The people that get this in place, there's really nobody doing it right now. But if you look at the valet services at the airport, it's like this, if you looked at a graph right now. People pulling up the airport and dropping off their keys. If you can imagine when that customer comes back, there's a sign in there saying, we want to buy your car. Just having somebody put that in every one of those vehicles with that customer right there as an opportunity. Restaurant valet. You want to think that people aren't smart? Jason Frampton, a buddy of mine from the Garf Automotive Group, came down to Houston. We went to lunch. When we came out of the place that we ate lunch at, you had to valet your car. When we walked outside, this is what was sitting on my keychain. That little piece. The reason why it's torn like that little piece at the top, was actually hanging on my keychain. Texas Direct wants to buy your car. Folded as a tent, the reason why there's a line down the center of that, it was folded like a little tent. Right there, we want to buy your car. I was so enamored by it that I ran inside and asked the manager, what did Texas Direct pay you to do this? They said, Randy, they didn't pay us anything. They just supplied our valet materials. So the other side of that was their valet piece. But if you want to really be aggressive and think outside the box, this is the kind of stuff that you need to be thinking about. How do I make my store better? Or if you just want to pay all that crazy money to the auction, I showed you earlier 95% of your purchases. If you saw the auction's numbers, if they sent you a bill each and every month for all the cars you bought, we all in the room would instantly change what we're doing. But because they do it net of the vehicle, on the buy and the sell, it's like a slow drug. We don't even feel it. We just keep getting it. That's why these companies are billion-dollar companies taking advantage of everybody sitting here in the room. You got to become your own destiny, and the only way you're going to do that is by talking about doing some of the things that I'm sharing with you here. Car wash, tire shops, waiting rooms. Wherever you are that you're sitting there spending time in, then that's where you guys need to be advertising. What do you think a lot of people are going washing their car while I'm sitting there for 20 minutes while they're washing my car? Or I'm sitting in a tire shop waiting for a place. A lot of them have these new marketing things that ads are just coming across, right across that scene. We want to buy your car. We want to buy your car. If your mindset is, Randy, I can't do anything with that kind of car, you don't know what kind of car lot I am, then you're the wrong mindset. Because think about what CarMax is doing. They're averaging $9.26 a copy on all the cars that they're wholesaling. That means when a car comes in that they don't need, what are they doing? They're buying that car for a dollar amount they know they can wholesale that car with. So they're being known as a place to just go sell your car, and that's really what we need to have. I want every customer passing through my shop. Even if I don't sell the kind of product they have, if they're selling a car, a boat, motorcycle, I don't give a rat what it is. I'm willing to take care of your automotive needs. That's what we're looking at. When you look at the next one, geo-targeting. Right now, there's a lot of little bitty jicky companies that are out there doing this, but I'm talking about doing this for real. So drawing an area, a big circle around an area and just shotgunning ads out, that's not what I'm talking about. Right now, if I could target a CarMax location, filter out the employees of that CarMax location, send over, we want to buy your car ads, that when the customer clicks on that ad, right there on their smartphone, they can describe their car and launch it right to you, because guess what I know is happening at all these car lots? People are leaving those CarMaxes with a written offer for their car. They're not walking out with a check. All I want is the opportunities to intercept that opportunity. The technology has changed. I'm searching to be able to sell my car. I can pick up on the keyword. And I'm not talking about pay-per-click. I'm talking about on the geo side. I can force to win ad space right there on a smartphone and deliver an ad that I want to buy your car. We want to sell you a car. We want to be able to get you a new payment. Whatever you want, you can deliver it right there to that consumer across that side of it. You can even physically go down to a person's address today because the technology is hyper-focused to be able to look at all the way down to someone's address and do cross-device matching. That means I can pick up your smartphone, your tablet, your home PC, and deliver that ad to a customer that is in market to sell their car, in market to buy a car. That technology exists right now. Advertise to beat CarMax. Like I told you, whoever's the big player in your market that's buying a lot of cars, advertise to beat them, market to beat them. Have those customers coming over to your location. Far better than just having a sign or something on your website. I'm not telling you to sign up with Auto Trader and give the customer some horrible bid on their car. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that automated bid stuff. All that does is run off customers. You got to have a catcher's mitt on to be able to talk to those customers. All I want to know is that you want to sell your car, and then I physically want to get on the phone with you and invite you down to the dealership and write you a check for the car. Don't be so picky and choosy, and please don't do what everybody else is doing. What happens is we go to the auction, we keep our hand up, and we pay $2,000-3,000 over MMR data or over book data. But then a customer that walks on our lot, we hit that car $2,000 to $3,000 back because you think you can. You can't. You need to know that the most important number at your dealership right now is that closing ratio. And if you don't know what your trade closing ratio is, or whatever you're doing to be able to trade for those cars, you could be running off a tremendous amount of business. When you look at it, do you sell warranties or service contracts? If you look at the number there, it actually shows 63% yes right now in your business in 16, and in 17, 56% yes. So are you selling service contracts? The graph to the right of that is how many service contracts are you selling? Number one thing with a consumer, these cars are not made by God. These cars break down. Guess what that customer thinks? You sold me a bad car. You're a bad dealer. That's the only way that customer thinks. The customer doesn't think, oh, wow, that Mitsubishi with 200,000 miles on it's a bad car. No, you're the dealer that sold it. The car broke down. You're a bad dealer. Service contracts help retain business. You got to make sure you're doing the right thing. Have a policy and present the policy. It is an excellent profit opportunity for a store. The percentages that I'm seeing there are crazy low. When you've got the new car stores that are running 70, 80% off a car that already has a factory warranty, it's insane that you guys' numbers are not that high. You need to be at 50, 60, 70, 80% off of what you're doing. And you're competing with new car stores that are starting to put lifetime warranties on cars. So you got to know that you got to step up your game to actually exist in with what we're doing. Do you offer certified vehicles? 85% no in 16, 84% in 17. When I say certified vehicle, let me just tell you, when I bought cars off of a new car store through the auction, I would sit there and keep their stickers on the car. All those certified stickers. There's a big joke between me and Sewell that Sewell would leave all their stickers on. They'd even have customers that would call and say, hey man, I saw one of your Sewell cars over at a guy's lot over in Kingwood. I don't understand that. What I would do is I'd leave those stickers on there because you know why? I knew I would do a better presentation than the new car store about that certified. I am not a fan of certified cars if you're not going to present it. But if you're going to present it, what is a certified car? What does it mean to me as a consumer? You got to have a process in place that makes it a benefit to me to buy a car from you, because in today's world, we got to get back to selling. So when you look at it, NIADA has a certified program that a lot of stores are not taking advantage of, but a program is there for you guys that they've worked out a special on, and I'm just telling you that we need to be able to take a look at it. The other area, sales process. We need to get back to the basics of selling. We got to be different. How is your store different? If I lined up all your salespeople out this door right now and brought them in, what would they tell me the reason why I should buy a car from your store? When I look at it overall, we got to out-recon the competition. We got to out-process the competition. That means our process has to be better. CarMax, one thing I can tell you is that originally when they first started, we used to make fun of them. Today, I can't make fun of them anymore. They sold 1 million cars last year. Where do you think those million sales came from? They came from people sitting in this room. So these aren't new customers. They just stole our business. So we got to get our fair share of that business. Out-warranty the competition. Out-selection the competition. Out-present the competition. Having a storybook and benefits of being able to why I should buy your car. Just because I'm buying a used car, I shouldn't get a used car presentation. I ought to get a, apologize on that. I made sure with my buddy Shane that I wouldn't go past the time. So, guys, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you. I know it's like, wow, why'd this guy come up here and scream at me for the last 20 minutes? All you get out of this is doing something different. That's what I want you to be able to do. Literally today, if your competition is, I'm just going to go to the auction, supply my lot, price it against the market, your business opportunities are shrinking, and these other people are growing. They're really focused on it, and they're focused on your end of the business. The lower end, higher end, mid-range, all that on their cars. You guys are the sharpest people in the automotive business. You don't have a new car company sitting there subsidizing your profits. You guys make it happen each and every day. I'd appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and talk to you. I'll be around after the presentation. Shane, we'll get him up here. I definitely appreciate being able to talk to you guys. There you go, buddy. So just forward it right there.
Okay, thank you.
Or you can hit the computer either way.
So Randy hits a lot of great points, and I'm going to take just a little bit of a change here in direction and reference back some of the things that he hits, because he hits some very good metrics around this. And before I get going into the slide deck, I just want to talk a little bit about his comments around CarMax. We're seeing a very significant shift in the automotive industry today that's very similar to what we saw years ago when CarMax came into the market. And Randy, I think, referenced that, as dealers, we used to kind of poke fun at that, and we can't do that anymore today. Companies like Carvana, these non-traditional retailers, we're seeing that happen with them as we speak. I saw some literature that was written around Carvana and how much money they're losing, and they're spending all this money in advertising, and they're not profitable. They know what they're doing. These are venture capitalists that are funding those companies, and they know that they're changing the landscape of how people search and buy vehicles. I want to talk a little bit about breaking this down just into 4 S's of CPO specifically, but inventory in general, acquisition, and disposition. When we start talking about this, these S's are stocking, then the supply that you carry, the sourcing of how you acquire that inventory, which Randy has spoken to in pretty great detail already, and then the selling. And the selling revolves around merchandising, which is very important in my mind. So we'll start with stocking, which the biggest metric that I look at with this, with any piece of inventory, including CPO, is the market day supply of that vehicle. How long is it going to take to turn it? Is it the right vehicle? How many of them are there in the market? How have they performed in the market? So securing CPO-worthy inventory. And what does that mean? How many in here are actively working with CPO of any kind? So to Randy's point earlier, the 84% number is represented in the room. The majority are not undertaking CPO, and it's typically because of perceived cost, that I have to carry vehicles that are a lot more expensive. I have to put added cost or added reconditioning into it, which is all true. But at the end of the day, the result is it going to sell for more? Am I going to have more margin on it? And am I going to be able to turn it faster? A lot of this comes down to the exit strategy in the beginning. And anyone who's acquiring any kind of used car inventory that doesn't have an idea of what their exit strategy is in that inventory is probably missing one of the steps along the way. You have to think about, how am I going to get rid of these vehicles? We would all like to think that if we buy them, that they're going to sell quickly, I'm going to turn them in 30 days, I'm going to make $2,000 or $3,000 on it, and then I'll go replace it. But it just doesn't work out that way. We end up stuck with vehicles sometimes for whatever reason, and we have to have an idea of how we're going to turn that inventory. So proper selection and proper valuation up front, the right vehicle with the right equipment, the right color combinations, and the correct valuation on the vehicle. You can take a vehicle that may be a 45-day market day supply vehicle and pay way too much for it and overprice it and turn it into a 150-day vehicle if you don't adjust on the pricing. A lot of these metrics are available in different inventory management systems. You can see all the inventory that you need. You can adjust it against the market. As Randy pointed out, when you get into CPO and you buy a vehicle that's nicer, you buy a vehicle that has additional equipment, you have to put extra expense into it, all that cuts into your margins. So making sure that you're making the correct selections up front is paramount. Really a subcategory to stocking, but I like to break it out separately, is supply. Because I'm stocking vehicles but what does my supply of my inventory look like? And what does the underlying market day supply of those vehicles look like? Are they turning quickly in the market? And do I have the right number of vehicles on the ground to service the number of vehicles I want to sell monthly? A lot of this comes back to understanding your market, the competitive landscape in your market. Do I have CarMaxes in the area? Has Carvana targeted my area to try to sell vehicles and buy vehicles in that area? An interesting statistic that we pulled a few months ago for another conference that we presented at was that Carvana has made huge gains in the retail space. In Florida, they're now a retailer that's superior to CarMax. A lot of people would look at that and never imagine that they're selling that many cars. They're in the top 5 sellers in the Houston market. That was one of the ones we did the research on. It's just amazing how fast they're running up the scales. And when you look at the way that the landscape has changed, you can see that they're taking the business away from everyone in this room and others out in the market today. New buyers aren't just flooding into the market. The pie is just getting sliced in different ways. Mentioning the Houston market, and this is coincidental that Randy and I both talked about, I think you said you were from Houston, correct? We take a look at Houston for May 19 just to kind of get an idea of what the top selling vehicles in that market are. And by far trucks are very popular in that area, being Texas and a large farm and agriculture area. Toyota's not far behind, but these numbers change. They change every month. This is a 50-mile radius around the Houston market, but you can widen this out to 100 miles, and the landscape of this chart changes. You bring more SUVs in. You bring trucks even take off even more. You can tighten it up into the metro areas, and you may see cars pick up a little more speed. So having metrics like this and making sure that you understand what you're looking for, whether it be standard used car inventory or if you're looking for CPO inventory, if you don't have this kind of information in front of you, then you have one arm tied behind your back. Sourcing is obviously something that's age-old. It's the way that we go out and we look for vehicles. Randy had some great metrics on this, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. But making sure that you know what you want to carry, and then knowing where you want to go to get it. Because at the end of the day, we have to sell cars. And if we spend all our time trying to figure out where we're going to get cars to sell, then all of a sudden the focus is not where it needs to be, which is making gross profit. There's, again, functionality and inventory management systems that will allow you to source different auctions, Manheim, ADESA, any of the NIADA auctions. They're all available for consumption within these systems. And if you're not taking advantage of that technology, then you're, again, fighting with one arm behind your back against your competition. You have to have some kind of help as it relates to this. And if you don't have an inventory management system, these auction companies offer ways to source this inventory, to evaluate this inventory, and to find what you need. Some of these ways to do this is through appraisal, as Randy mentioned. When you're out, when we have consumers who are just, for whatever reason, want to sell their vehicle. Dealers every day have customers that walk in the door and they say, I'm just looking, I'm not doing this. The question is, how many dealers actually are trying to buy a car, or actually aggressively trying to buy a car, in the way that some of these references that Randy made earlier with the key tags, things like that. There's just a ton of different ways to source for that inventory and make offers to buy vehicles. ADESA's interfaces obviously have a ton of information around the nation, auctions, vehicle condition reports. They give you all the information you need. Manheim carries the same kind of interfaces, and most in the room have done business with one or both of those particular auction entities. Just some different screenshots on that. Selling is really where I wanted to focus the majority of my time today, because that's really where I think the exit strategy comes in. When you're sourcing for inventory, especially certified pre-owned inventory, you have to understand that you're going to put more dollars into that inventory to sell it. But the purpose in that is to allow yourself to bring a better quality vehicle to your customers. Typically, CPO vehicles are, obviously, they stand taller on the lot. They have some type of warranty. For instance, the NIADA CPO program is partnered with Warrantech to provide that CPO warranty on any vehicle that's sold through that program. And that provides an added value to the consumer. And when you ask yourself, how do I differentiate myself from the franchise dealer? The franchise dealer, for whatever reason, the stigma is they sell a better car. Now, we all know that's not the case. Having been an independent dealer myself at one time, it was something I battled with. And people would continually want to go pay more at a franchise dealer simply because they were buying from Chevrolet store or Ford store or whatever the case may be. The fact of the matter is, an independent dealer, as we all know, can go out and buy the same inventory and typically can sell it at a better price than the franchise store have because you don't carry the overhead. You don't have that $200,000 or $300,000 a month or $400,000 a month that you have to have just to open the doors. So selling the inventory and making sure that it's merchandised properly is what I really want to focus on here. One thing we forget about, and I think we've gotten away from, is the traditional road to the sale. Show of hands in the room, everybody that's heard the road to the sale. Absolutely. Everybody that's been in the car business at one time or another has heard of it. This is how we trained people. When new salespeople would come into the dealership, they would learn 8, 10 steps. Different stores use different processes, but they would learn the road to the sale. And the purpose in that was to build value in my car. It wasn't to talk about and compare against all the other Toyota Camrys in the market. It was to try to build value in the car that I have here on the ground. And there was a time in the car business, obviously, that it was taboo to skip any steps in that road to the sale. If you went to the desk manager and you were ready to do a demo, but you hadn't done a correct presentation or demonstration on that vehicle, then chances were you weren't going to get the keys to do a demo. And you're probably going to get yelled at and sent back to talk about the rest of the value in the vehicle. So the first step I want to talk about is meet and greet. And really the point to take away here today is to understand that these processes are just as valid today as they were 25 years ago. The only difference is they're virtualized today. So what would the virtual handshake be today? Well, it would be when the consumer lands on your webpage. How do you greet them? Do you greet them by throwing a bunch of coupons at them and saying, talk to me through this chat and email here and special of the day? Or do they have a very simple experience when they log into that website that they're easily able to look at your inventory, they're able to find what they want, they're able to filter easily, and all of the things that the consumer wants to do. I liken it to when a customer drove into the lot before all of the days of the internet and the merchandising on the internet. When the customer drove onto the lot and they had 3 salespeople that descended on them from different angles, what did they do? They were just looking, they tried to get back to their car as fast as they could. I'm not interested, because they felt intimidated. They felt like that they were being pushed into something. And it's very similar when they land on the website and the website just overpowers them with all of this communication. I pulled just a couple of examples that I wanted to show you. So here's a landing page of a Chevrolet dealer to start with that just really pulls all the information away from what the customer wants, which is the new and used inventory. It's on there, but it's up in the corner, up in the upper left corner. It's very small. Nothing that's really very easy to navigate. The next one is a used car store that hit us with this coupon right out of the gate. And then when you close this one, another one may open. So again, you're having to dodge coupons. How long are you going to hang on to the customer there? Another one here that doesn't even talk about new or used car inventory or inventory of any kind. Now this is a real dealership that we pulled this screenshot from that doesn't even tell us, how do I look at your inventory? What kind of an introduction to that is that to the shopper? Another one, popped it in, coupons, after coupons that pop up, you close them, another one pops up. It's just a terrible experience and a terrible virtual handshake for that customer. The next piece is selection, and it's the determination of the needs of the online user experience. Okay, so as the customer comes in, the first thing typically they want to do is I want to look at cars. Hopefully, if you're the dealer and they're landing on your website, hopefully they're there to look at cars. Well, selection is when they do that. That's when they're looking through, what am I going to take a look at? So how are you going to present that to your customers? Are you going to make it hard for them to find it? Or are you going to make that the highlight of your website when they land there, the landing page? The next piece is presentation. Now again, presentation would be when we pulled the car up to the front of the dealership. We did, started showing the features and benefits of that particular car. We want to do the same thing here. It's a virtual walk around. It's a way to talk about that vehicle and talk about why you need to buy my vehicle. Again, as a takeaway, if everyone in the room doesn't take anything else out of this session, I would ask that you take away the fact that every vehicle has a story, especially used. Every used vehicle has its own DNA. It has its own fingerprint. and that's how you have to be presenting it online. If you're not doing the online presentation and the virtual walk around correctly, you're going to lose the customer and not going to convert. So it doesn't matter how much money you've spent on SEO, on SEM, on driving traffic to your website. If it's not set up correctly to convert that customer to a lead, you've wasted your money. The next piece that I would ask in the room is, how important is condition to your shoppers? When a customer logs into your website and they've picked that vehicle, you've done everything else correctly, and you get to presentation, what are you going to show them? Well, you're going to show them pictures of the vehicle, you're going to show them pictures of the tires, pictures of the interior, maybe some 360 spin, things like that you're going to try to do to get their attention on the vehicle. But how important is the condition of the vehicle to the customer? Carvana thinks it's very important because they have put together an online platform that makes it very easy for the customer to look at the vehicle and understand its condition and understand if it has dents and dings and scratches and those kind of things. And this is just as important in the CPO world, if not more important. If you're going to get the customer to pay more money for a certified pre-owned vehicle, you have to build that value. And the way you can build that value is by using something like a condition report. We use it in wholesale purchases. It's the way that Odessa and Mannheim got us to transition away from buying cars in person 15, 18 years ago. When those applications came out, they struggled with engagement. And then all of a sudden, the CRs came along, the condition reports came along, and it started telling us, here's what the vehicle is. Here's this body panel, and here's this body panel, and this one's been painted. And we knew exactly what we were buying. We weren't buying blind anymore. The same can be said today for consumers. Consumers are 15 years behind where we were from a wholesale perspective in buying vehicles online and shopping predominantly online, but they're there today. And so this begs the question of, how much information do we want to give our customers? And could we ever give them too much information? Our research shows that we can't give them too much information. More than 75% of consumers that we've talked to have overwhelmingly indicated that they would buy from a vehicle that had a condition report on their used car listing before they would a dealer that didn't. And what they want to see are things like tire tread depth. Does it have any dents, dings, or scratches? Are there any interior odors in the vehicle? Things that you can't see from a set of pictures or even from a live video. So when you're providing that kind of information to a customer, or the interiors, showing things like close-ups of this vehicle has a blemish here, it has a scratch there, it may have a stain in one of the floor mats. Sharing that information has become important, because when you're not doing it and your competition is doing something like that, i.e. Carvana in this discussion, then you're going to lose that click. And again, we go back to the fact that you spent all this money to try to get that customer to your website. Now you're going to lose them because you don't provide them with enough information. The next piece is qualification. And qualification is self-explanatory in some ways, but it fits in different places in the road to the sale. If you have somebody that walks into your dealership or contacts you online and says, my credit score is 460, well, we know that qualification probably needs to bump up to the front of the road to the sale in that case. But typically, when you have a good buyer that's a good credit buyer, you know it, because they'll tell you, I can buy anything I want to on this lot. Well, great. But there comes a time when you still have to qualify them to see what kind of interest rates you can get them, and to see, and potentially if they have a vehicle to trade, what appraisal looks like, and so on and so forth. So qualification is, again, a piece that fits into that virtual road to the sale that now lives online, because you have online credit applications that can be submitted. You have online appraisals that can be conducted, ways that we can get a number to a customer. Then demonstration. So you'd ask yourself, how can I convert demonstration to an online format? Well, we can never have the customer test drive the car online, but we can get them as close to it as we can by doing things like live video, by doing things like 360 photography inside the vehicle, outside the vehicle, giving them as much information about the vehicle as they can. In fact, in live video, I've seen dealers that are even today doing test drives inside the vehicle while they're videoing these things. Or they're spending 2 or 3, 4 minutes outside the car walking around talking about it and tying that back into their walk around at the same time. Negotiation, online proposals. I'm sure that there's nobody in this room that enjoys that piece of the road to the sale. Negotiation was always the piece that inside the store we kind of held control of, and we didn't have to give a number away too fast. Today, that's all changed. You know, the market demands today that we provide customers with prices, that we give them our best price, that we provide them with payments, and all this stuff has to be done online either through email, through text communication, over the telephone. Ideally, we'd like to see people come into the store, but by the time you've gotten to this point, we're at least able to put some of the art of the sale in place and not necessarily depend on the science of the technology so much. So basically, in conclusion, I want to reiterate the four S's, which are stocking, the supply of vehicles that you have, the sourcing where you get them, and the selling of the vehicle. So with stocking, again, we want to focus on the right vehicles at the right price at the right time. Supply, constantly evaluate the top selling vehicles in your market down to the trim level. That's important to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples when you're looking at other vehicles in the market and you're talking about things like market day supply. And not only what sells, but where does it sell? You know, you vetting your market to understand that, you know, I may have a 25 or 30 mile radius that I consider my primary market area, but at the end of the day, do I know what zip codes buy what cars within that market? Because you could have 50 zip codes in a particular area that large. Do I know that this area sells SUVs very well and this area sells cars? And then how do I market to that and how do I merchandise those vehicles effectively? Sourcing, have a strategy when going to the auction. Have a strategy when buying directly, and Randy gave some great points about how to acquire inventory outside of the auctions. And then follow the virtual road to the sale by conducting all of the sales, all of the steps to the road to the sale online. That's important, and it's something we've gotten away from, and it's what differentiates dealer from dealer and how well they do that. I want to thank you. I appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming in and attending. Yes, sir. Well, I think what you see most of the time on the F&I side is that any of these CPO programs that are third party, you know, if you have, again, this is where the franchise stores sometimes have an advantage because the captives are going to look at it and say, oh, this is GM certified, you know, we're going to advance more money on it. GM Financial may say, I'm going to advance more money on it because it's GM certified. On the pre-owned side of the business, I think you see the lenders look at it more as an extended warranty that's being applied to the vehicle. Now, there's a certification charge, but that typically includes that extended service contract. So I think there's certainly ways that you can add that to the contract that necessarily wouldn't have to be included in the front end advance. Well, I think each lender is different, but I believe in these circumstances, like for instance, the NIADA certification program, if that, and I don't have those dollars, you know, I'm sure that they varied based on this and that, but if that certification charge includes that extended service contract, I think that you could certainly advance that on the back end as opposed to the front. Yes, sir. Yeah, and I think that's where the power of something like the NIADA's program could really come into play, because if that's the case, and you have a particular third-party merchandising site such as AutoTrader that doesn't want to allow you to advertise that as certified, the NIADA has the kind of negotiating power to go to the table with AutoTrader and talk about those things and create those partnerships to be able to work that in. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, and we can certainly share that feedback with them for you. I believe that's to this gentleman's point, as he mentioned earlier, about where does that money live. The question, it goes back to one of the points I made earlier, which is when I go out and I source for these vehicles and I buy these vehicles and you know, I have to pay top dollar for them because the market demands it today anyway, how much of my margin is that going to cut into when I start adding this additional reconditioning expense and this warranty certification and all the things that come along with creating a CPO vehicle? You know, it's obviously along that road to the sale. When you're talking to the customer and you're building value in that vehicle, you can potentially sell it, but then, you know, credit worthiness becomes an issue, and how much can I get advanced on this person? You know, there's certain people obviously that can borrow whatever they need, but if you're advance restricted, or you're in a situation where, you know, the lender's only going to give you a certain payment because they're income limited or whatever the case may be, there's certainly hoops to jump through there. But that's great feedback, and I'd be happy to share that with the NIADA. Any other questions? All right. Thanks again, everybody, for coming in and taking the time.